Thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike, as always. I've got my buddy Alex. How you doing, man?
Hey, welcome to Alex and Mike in the Morning.
Holy hell, that was loud. This is a bit of a different episode because what we're doing, we're not really doing a topic episode, but we're also not doing a movie that's a true remake or a reboot.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Right. We're doing a movie that actually had litigation against it and was settled for an unknown 7-figure amount. But basically, we're going to do one of my favorite movies. I love this movie, unabashedly. It's one of my favorite films. I watch it all the time. We're doing the 2005 Michael Bay classic, The Island.
It worries me that it's one of your favorite films.
It's so much fun, and it was a movie that came out of nowhere. And I'll tell you like my discovery of the movie in a little bit. But this movie, just to give a little bit of background, there was a movie that came out in 1979 that has a couple different names. It's out on the internet as Parts, the Clonus Horror, or just Clonus, and then also Clonus.
The Parts Horror.
Yeah, it's like there's like 3 or 4 names that float around
for
this
the Parts
movie.
Clonus.
Yeah, like all the variations of those 3 or 4 words. But this was a movie that came out in 1979. You know, it cost $250,000. It made like $3 million over the course of a couple decades, and like won some contests for being like movies under $500,000 budget. And has very mixed reviews. Some people think it had a really, really great idea and concept, just poorly executed. And then in 2005, The Island came out, which is Michael Bay's like worst performing movie, one of DreamWorks' worst performing movies of all time. And like it essentially lost money by the time you factor in promotions and whatnot. But then it was sued by the production company that made Clonus. I'm just going to call it Clonus for the sake of the episode, just to keep it easy. Yeah. But basically, in the court, they argued that there was over 90 plot points that were 100% identical. And yeah, so DreamWorks settled for an undisclosed amount. Yeah. But that being said, I want to talk about these movies. I'm assuming you've seen The Island before.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out.
Yeah, so I worked at the movie theater when it came out. And when you read a lot of reviews and articles even talking about essentially the theft and the plagiarism of the movie, a lot of people mention that this movie is really underrated, surprised that it didn't do well. So it came out the same weekend that the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was still playing, Wedding Crashers, and Fantastic Four.
Oh, wow.
The first one.
Right.
So, yeah, it had a little bit of an uphill battle. The other thing was I don't know if you've ever seen the trailer for this movie. The trailer does not resemble what the movie actually is.
I watched the trailer before we watched it yesterday, but I don't remember the trailer.
Yeah, it made it look like the trailer looks like it was made for like a TV movie. Like it looks like the pilot.
Oh yeah, it's got like a weird like cheap font.
Really weird cheap font overlaying the video where it's like the font has like cutouts and then you see the footage of the movie behind it, and it just has like the worst lines of the movie, and it's just like it's all the 20 minutes in the middle of the movie when they're escaping and whatnot. So it's just a bad trailer. So this movie is kind of like still an underrated gem from Michael Bay, and just has this chip on his shoulder for being directly plagiarizing a bad movie from the 70s. So I'm excited to talk about it. But yeah. So I think we should just get into the 1979 one. Do you want to summarize it?
Parts, The Clonus Horror, takes place on an isolated desert compound where everyone dresses in Adidas jumpsuits.
Yep.
And they all seem to be in some sort of a cult where they do calisthenics and are all kind of dumb. And we find out that these people have this promise of getting to America one day, and they have to be selected, or I guess they don't have to win a lottery, but they do in the island, right?
Yeah.
They're selected and they're very excited to go to America. Little do they know that they're being farmed for their organs by somebody in America. Do we know that it's wealthy? Oh yeah, we know it's Knight, right?
Yeah. So we know We'll get into it. But yeah, they're wealthy people.
Wealthy, famous people are cloning them and harvesting their organs, and there's a conspiracy afoot. And our hero gets out and tries to take down the company.
Yeah, what's interesting about this movie? It's not a good movie. Like, there are weird camera angles and weird cuts that just it's.
Did you watch the version that you sent me?
Yes.
It was like the movie. I think it was a TV movie or something, wasn't it?
No, this was like for independent films and did have a small theatrical release.
I saw another version of it that was in different aspect ratio, and this one was in 16:9, and it kept on like doing this thing, like the camera was moving around.
Yeah, it was weird. This was covered by Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I tried to watch
back
that
in
version.
the 90s.
It was too distracting.
Yeah, I thought about doing it too, but I figured it would be distracting. Yeah. But this movie's weird because there's certain things that they say that seem almost contradictory throughout the movie. Like I actually read a synopsis about the movie as I was watching it because I was getting confused because there's a point where they call excuse me, it's me getting over my COVID. The remnants.
Disgusting. I might get it through the phone.
No, I've been testing negative for over a week.
You also can't get it through a computer, so.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, what's a computer virus then? Huh?
Welcome to Earth.
So Jeffrey Knight at one point is called the president-elect, and so he says, "We're going to go to your inauguration." But then later on, they're like, "Oh, he's the candidate." So there's times where they like directly contradict what they say throughout the movie, or whether he's the president-elect or if he's just a candidate.
Right.
But it starts out with like the opening's really weird. Like you just see bodies in bags frozen and like these weird like voices, like almost like chanting. And then it cuts to like what looks like a presidential rally and then back to these things. And then it just hard cuts to people doing calisthenics, as you said, in Adidas suits. Like there's no flow or transition or segue from any scene to the other. It's just these really hard cuts that are jarring. And like the first 20 minutes of the movie, it's just them working out and the guy questioning like, what's America? What's America? But there's no plot in the first like 15, 20 minutes. It's not even exposition. It's not even world building. It's just like watching people exercise and then just other people talking into walkie-talkies being like, we're guarding them.
It's very cinema verite.
Yeah, it's not a good movie.
It's not a great movie. It's not even a good movie. I thought it was funny. I mean, I guess it makes sense in hindsight, but I remember watching it and thinking it was funny that they were talking about being excited about going to America as if they're not in America, and they're all speaking in these like perfect Californian accents.
Yep. I thought it was. Well, the other thing that's interesting about this is when you talk about clones, in most movies, clones come out aged to the same age that the person was when they got cloned.
Right.
This movie is a little bit unique because they mention, and we don't see them, but the clones actually have to grow up from kids to adults. Right. Because the president-elect or senator, they call him senator as well, Senator Jeffrey Knight, he mentions at one point when we start to reveal what's going on that he has already taken like a heart from a clone, and his current clone is a baby, so he's not going to be able to have a heart for a couple of decades.
Yeah, it seems like maybe the technology is not quite there yet.
Well, but the other thing that's weird is there's a video at one point that like Richard, who's the protagonist of the story, he just starts questioning things because he finds a beer can in the river, and he's like, "What is this? It says Milwaukee." And like the head scientist guy's like, "Oh, that's nothing. That's just like a mineral that can only be found in certain areas."
And then some sort of nonsense spelling.
Yeah, and then like they have like a phone booth that you put on like broadcast headphones, and you can ask questions.
It's MSN search.
Yeah, and it's super weird. So they're like, "Oh yeah, that's nonsense." And then he gets into like the lab and finds a map of America, but it's like not like a map. It's like one that you find at an elementary school classroom. It's not like each state is like purple or red or blue. And conveniently, Milwaukee goes all over Wisconsin and Illinois and Minnesota, so you can really see the city of Milwaukee on this map.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But
it was kind of weird watching both of these movies, but I think maybe it's more pronounced in this one. like all the clones are so like innocent and naive and childlike, and it becomes kind of a bummer to see them being manipulated.
I agree with
Like,
that.
not fun.
100%. No, I agree. When like I've got some things to say on that exact note when we get into the island, because
Sure.
that's the one I'm more familiar with. But it is interesting, and to me, like I watched the island first just because Katrina wanted to watch it and she didn't care about watching this one. And I've also watched the island at least once or twice every year because I legitimately love that movie.
You're insane.
But one of the things I thought was like bananas was there's a point where like Richard, who we later on find out is a clone of Jeffrey Knight, the senator / president-elect / candidate's younger brother.
The guy that we, the guy that we haven't seen since the opening of the movie, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's super weird, and that it's just like nonsensical because it doesn't tie into anything. So it's like that relationship's weird. But anyway, he finds this girl named Lena, and they like fuck the night that they meet.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just bananas because I'm like, in the island they have these rules about proximity. They can't be close because the whole point is these people are supposed to be organ farms for the elite, so they don't want their women getting pregnant or getting pregnant and like mushing on their organs and giving them like medical conditions they don't need. There's a reason why they have them exercising to keep them fit and healthy. So long story short, eventually the guy escapes and he finds a reporter who's retired. The reporter takes him, finds out that he's a clone of Richard, the brother of Jeffrey Knight. And initially the guy's like, holy shit, this is insane. And the son, which, this movie can't be found anywhere. So we watched it on YouTube. But the quality, at first I thought it was the son. And I was like, wait, did the president-elect senator dude clone the son? Because the quality of the video was so low, I couldn't tell that they were different actors.
Yeah.
But he goes, and at first they're like, oh no, this is awful. We're going to go to the mainstream media and tell everyone what's going on. And then the brother goes to talk to the senator guy, and the senator guy's like, no. I did this because you're my brother, and I'm going to get to live an extra 60 to 90 years, and I want you to be able to live 60 to 90 years. And all of a sudden the brother's like, you know what? Yeah, actually having a clone's pretty tight. Fuck the clones. And then he goes home and tells his son, like, hey, you know what? We're just going to send the clone back because, like, that's free organs for me, buddy.
Yeah.
And then the son's like, no, we're going to fucking turn him in. And then all of a sudden, like, the feds come in, or like the bad guys, and like drown the son in the swimming pool. And then like the brothers are fighting, and actually the brother accidentally impales the president-elect senator dude. And then the guards take the brother and throw him in the pool with his dead son, and then throw like a radio in to electrocute him. And then they Richard gets back, while this is going on, Richard gets back to the clone facility and sees that his girlfriend that he just met and fucked once got tortured because they were trying to find out what information this guy had, and then they lobotomized her, and he's like, oh no, and then they like club him,
just
and
like
then
Randall
he dies.
Patrick McMurphy.
But then they end up just killing, like they kill him, and the movie ends when you see the president dude is alive and everything. Clearly they gave him new organs from somewhere, and we just see our protagonist in a bag frozen with a single tear down his cheek that's frozen.
And the kind elderly couple, the reporter guy that's helping him out,
get
blown up. I love a downer ending, so I was kind of into that. But
I was also honestly
absurd.
Surprised.
Did you notice that she was screaming through the explosion?
Yeah,
I've never been in an explosion, but I feel like once you get exploded, you don't scream anymore. You just kind of.
Well, you mentioned the technology. I ended up going and doing more of a more detailed plot summary. But one of the things you mentioned that the technology is not there. But when he goes to the lab and he finds the map, he finds a video that explains what human reproduction is, and then cloning, and then it says that they successfully cloned people going back to 1931.
Yeah,
so that's insane.
Yeah, that's true though, right? I mean, not cloning people, but like knowing what cloning was, the idea was back there.
They said they successfully cloned something in 1931.
Yeah.
I rewound it like 5 times. I'm like, there's no fucking way. They said 1931. They cloned in 1931. Bananas. Yeah. And then the end of the movie,
they cloned bananas?
Downer. Yeah, actually, that's one of the things. Apparently, I didn't realize this, but after watching both these movies, I looked into where cloning is now after Dolly the Sheep. Mm-hmm. And apparently, the U.S. and Japan actually clone a ton of livestock. Yeah, I had no bananas. Idea.
That's great.
Yeah, and bananas. Well, but they do legitimately clone plants and crops to keep stock for ones with the, like genes that they like. So yeah, it's bananas, man. I don't have much to say about this movie, so the mic's yours.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would love. I mean, this is why they did it on Mystery Science Theater. Like, I want to rewatch this movie and just question every single decision. Like, there's something there. It's an interesting idea, and that's why the writer of The Island decided to rip it off. But
yeah,
the way they executed this movie is just like, whew.
It's a very good idea and an interesting premise. It's just not executed very well at all.
In my notes, it says this guy is a cat burglar now. He puts on like the Sterling Archer turtleneck and is just like sneaking around and stuff. I didn't feel like it made a lot of sense that he was able to become a cat burglar. Also, how does he know how an elevator works?
How does he know how anything? How did he get from the desert area, which is not a desert at all, to a city and like find a reporter and be able to explain what everything? How did he know how to use a computer? How did he know how to use a VCR?
What's interesting to me in both of these movies, and neither one of them really says it outright, but I think it's interesting that these people are kept in like perfect physical condition. Like they're top, they're Captain America, they're peak condition. So it makes sense to me that they can like outrun anybody, and maybe they're good at fighting, right? We saw them wrestling and stuff.
Yeah, they had to play fighting.
Yeah. So I think that like their physical acuity or whatever is very interesting. But neither one of the movies really touches on that. And then like, how does he know what an elevator is? How does he know how to fly a fucking futuristic jetpack or whatever? That's in the next movie.
Yeah, no, it's at least the next movie does try to explain some of it. But it's a little weird. Like the only other thing that I have in this that I thought was funny was just like, at least in the new version, there's a reason why Ewan McGregor's character starts questioning things. In this one, the guy's just like, he finds a can on the ground and is like, what is this? And the guards are like, why do you want to know? Why are you asking questions? And he's just like, well, I just found this thing. And the guards are like, I'm gonna have to report you. Report me for what? I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I feel like,
and then like there's
both of these movies that if I was the guys in charge, I would have done a better job of I don't know, squashing dissent or not arousing suspicion.
Right.
My only other things are this and Firestarter, which we watched last episode. If you guys want to check that out, both have our heroes taken in by a kind elderly couple. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
The bickering of that couple was insane. Like that was ridiculous. And then Jeffrey Knight, who is Peter Graves, is the pilot from Airplane, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, he is. Cool. Well, let's move to our next segment. What have you been up to, bud?
Wait, let me find it. Well, I'm glad you asked, sir. I told you we watched Jackass Forever, right?
Yes.
So we watched Jackass 4.5. And it was good.
Nice. It's a little shorter. It's not the whole movie with extra footage because that was on Netflix or Peacock. I can't remember which one, but it didn't seem like it was much longer at all compared to the.
Yeah, the 0.5s are always like documentaries with extra scenes like interspersed and stuff. And this one was a little bit shorter than the other ones. I think the other ones are normal movie length. I think this one was under an hour and a half, so it felt a little short.
It seemed pretty short,
but pretty cool to watch. You must have grown up watching Jackass, right?
Not really,
but
really? I watched the movies.
Okay.
So I worked at the movie theater for I think number 2, and then I went and saw number 3 in theaters. So right. And number 1 was like all my friends loved it. So I watched all the movies, but I never watched the show.
Have you watched the new one?
Yeah.
So Bam's not in this one because he was having.
Yeah, fuck Bam. I hate Bam.
Right. He was like having issues. I have a soft spot for Bam. Like I did a lot of growing up on those shows. I always hated him. I can see a little bit of myself in him, not in horrible ways, but it didn't. Having him not being in the new one didn't feel that weird. I didn't really miss him. I feel bad for him. Like it's a sad story, especially with Ryan Dunn,
don't because they did it for Jackass 3 as well because they were trying to keep everyone sober for Steve-O.
Yeah.
But what I honestly don't care because when you watch all the other Jackass movies, like there are points, especially with like Ryan Dunn, like I think it's in Jackass 2, Ryan Dunn does a stunt where he's in like a shopping cart and he goes out and then he's supposed to go down like a ramp and out through like a garage door, and Bam closes the garage as Dunn's already going. Like Bam consistently fucked with people during their stunts to make them more dangerous. He was terrible to his parents, and then anytime somebody did anything with him, he would like cry like a bit. Like he cried like 4 or 5 times and everything. So it's like, fuck him. I don't even care.
We went back and watched Jackass 2.5 after that, and we also just watched 3.5. We watched all the 0.5s except for 1.5. And I guess it was 3.5. Way more dangerous. Way more like bodily harm stunts that are just like, not like something went wrong. Like they are set up to hurt you.
3 was the gnarliest.
Yeah, it was like fucked up. It's like, all right, I'm not even watching this for it to be funny. I just want to see somebody get hurt, I guess.
It's like hockey.
Yeah. So anyway, we watched the 0.5s. We watched Top Gun in preparation for Top Gun Maverick, which I still have not seen as of now.
Me neither. I had the Rona.
When are you back in town? Should we go?
Yeah, I'm back on Saturday.
Okay. I'm not gonna hold out that long, probably.
It's fine.
Sorry. It's been tough holding out this long.
I know.
We watched Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
I am dying to watch that.
So
I hear
good.
it's amazing.
It's so good. We just finished watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So Rachel Bloom's husband wrote Chip and Dale, and she voices like 3 of the characters. So it was a nice little
great.
follow-up.
I love her.
Yeah. She's great. And then the Bob's Burgers movie we saw the other day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
My list is pretty short just because I was traveling for the week before. I think I mentioned I started Suits on our last episode. I don't remember if I did or not. Yeah. But I was sick at home for like 7 days. And
7 days.
And then also like traveling. So I've in less than a week, I've watched 6 seasons of Suits.
Jesus Christ.
I actually really like it. The premise is bad, but for whatever reason, I love the show. We finished Ozark.
Just like
we're not quite. We didn't finish Stranger Things yet, but we're about halfway through the latest part of Stranger Things.
Stranger Things has been away for so long that we thought we would rewatch it from the beginning, and that'd be like a fun thing. And we got 2 episodes in, I think an episode and a half, and we were like, oh, I don't think we're going to watch 3 seasons of this. Like, it's good, but it's real heavy, and it was just going to take so long. Yeah,
and it's emotionally draining because it's pretty fucked up. The new season's fucking gruesome compared to the other seasons. Sick. And I think we're like 4 or 5 episodes into the.
I'm like excited for that. I just don't want to relive.
Yeah, no, you don't need to.
Will's body.
When you watch the first episode, it has a pretty good recap of what happened. So you should be good. Cool. We finished Ozark, and then of course, we watched the first 3 episodes of Obi-Wan.
Yeah. How about The Boys?
We didn't get to The Boys yet because I had to leave.
We watched it the
trip I'm on. Yeah, that'll be like the first thing I watch. Yeah, I can't wait. I fucking love The Boys.
We should do a Boys that episode.
Oh, I love The Boys. It's such a good show.
Yeah, you do.
Cool. The Island from 2005.
Sum it up.
Ripoff of 1979's Clonus. We've already said it, but we're going to say that again too. So Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson play clones in a utopian-like society until they find out that they are clones and are being used to harvest organs for the elite. So they escape and they go on an indiscriminate, just unremorseful killing spree until they take down the entire organization. They do not care how many civilians, police officers, just anybody who dies, as long as they can save the rest of the people.
Everyone dies.
Yep. No, that's a terrible. The movie takes place. It's
true.
Yeah. In reality, what's really going on, this movie takes place in the far, far future of 2019. I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand why movies don't just set things 200 years in the future just to give themselves some breathing room so they don't run into the Back to the Future issue.
I want to talk about that, actually, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I looked it up, and apparently Michael Bay said originally it was going to be set 100 years in the future, but for budgetary reasons they had to do it. I think they could have kept exactly the same look that they did and said it was 2175 or 2119 or something. Like, the technology was advanced enough that I'd say, okay, yeah, that's 100 years from now.
I guess. I mean, technology has been like ramping up exponentially for the past 50 years.
Yeah, but when you look at like the cloning facilities and the hologram shit that they have and the jet bikes and like the weaponry that they have, and I would say, or maybe make it 75 years. Split the difference. But
I
15 years?
Fair enough. I was just going to say, my favorite part of this movie probably is their portrayal of LA in, I guess, 2019. And I would have liked to have lived in that setting for a longer period, or just in another movie. I like the way they blended our current, or 2005 current, whatever, LA with future technology.
Yeah, well, what I find interesting is I almost think this movie is like two movies. I legitimately think the first 40 minutes or so is actually a really engaging, high concept sci-fi kind of horror film. And then when they escape, it just turns into a generic Michael Bay action movie. But I think the first 45 minutes, like that world when they're actually in the resort style kind of cloning facility, I actually think is really interesting. We get some good performances. Like we get all these character actors who are just like playing like kind of dumb, docile people. And then you get like Michael Clark Duncan is in 2 scenes. And I think he like more range than you see from him in anything other than like the Green Mile. Like Michael Clark Duncan has a scene where he like wins the lottery and gets to go to the island. He plays this like giddy, happy guy, and he's so excited, and he's like clapping and like, I'm going to the island, and his voice gets all high. And then he's the first person that we really see getting cut up to be harvested for his organs. And he's like crying and screaming and pleading, I just want to go to the island. And and then he like gets up and he runs, and they have to use their future weapons with like grapple hooks that shoot into like their calves and like reel him in and stun him. And you just see people terrified of this giant man, Michael Clark Duncan, running through a hallway. And people are like, yeah, we've done this before. And it's just like that scene is a part of why I love this movie. Like there's just certain things that are so effective. And I think like Michael Clark Duncan's small presence in this movie is just so effective at eliciting an emotion.
Yeah, I think that movie or that scene, I don't know. This feels a lot like Zack Snyder. Like that scene hints that there's something else going on underneath the hood of this movie. And like the director has a vision for the, political allegories and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then I look at other Michael Bay stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't think there's really anything going on. I think that he was just like, I'm going to put, a black man in chains or on a harpoon. And it means something. And I think Zack Snyder's kind of the same way.
No, I think you're right.
But
and I think those are two very
not effective.
No. And
but I don't know how intentional it is.
Yeah, and just for what it's worth saying, this is actually the first Michael Bay movie not directed by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Produced.
It's also his first, or what did I say?
Directed.
Yeah, produced. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Michael Bay's first sort of foray on his own without Jerry Bruckheimer holding his hand there, and it's also right before Transformers, and I think you see that a lot.
Yeah,
in the way it's shot.
Well, speaking of Transformers, there's actually footage from this movie that was reused in Transformers 3: Dark of the Moon.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. That's funny. I remember seeing the comparison video.
Yeah, but like getting into this movie, like there's certain like some of the dialogue, like Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor are so good at playing idiots. Like when they're in the real world, like what is this? What is that? What is this? Like
it's so inconsistent though. Like sometimes Ewan McGregor is like very like suave and cool and like on top of shit, and then he'll switch on a dime to being like what's a shoe or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think it's like when there's importance, I think his instinct and his memory kicks in, because he's the first one. Like this is where it makes a little bit more sense compared to the original one, Clonus. I'm just going to call it the original one because this movie blatantly ripped it off, and they admitted to it and paid 7 figures for it. The whole thing that's making this movie drive forward is that he is having dreams when he shouldn't be having dreams, and he's using Latin when he shouldn't know Latin. And it turns out he's starting to get core memories from his host or his sponsor.
Which is so fucking dumb.
Yeah, but at least it makes sense, and it gives
sure.
It allows it allows it to work in a world when they escape, that he can actually survive. And then also, like you mentioned, their peak physical condition because they train, and
that's why he knows how to fire a gun or drive a car or whatever.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's a hand wavy thing. Should we quickly go over some of the similarities between these movies?
Yeah, let's. How about you name one, I name one, and then until we run out.
They're all wearing tracksuits, except this time it's Puma instead of Adidas. Which, by the way, did you know that Puma and Adidas were started by brothers?
I did not know that.
Yeah, right before World War II, and they're German. And one of the brothers tried to get into the fucking shelter that the other brother was using to hide from the Nazis, and the other one accused one of them of being a Nazi or something.
Oh,
Like,
damn.
yeah, it's a ridiculous story. But two of the
Wow.
biggest shoe brands in the world owned by brothers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So we already kind of brought up this one, but they both have like simulated fights. So in the original movie, they had like wrestling and
Xbox.
fighting. In this one, they had like virtual, like where they're actually throwing punches, but it's like virtual avatars of themselves. So they've got some fighting.
And it's on an Xbox.
Yeah.
Promise a better life somewhere else.
Correct. Also having a clone escape and finding out the secret and then trying to go back and get a lover.
Taken in by an elderly couple or a, wizened gray-haired couple.
Yep. There's a couple that takes over. Let's see what else. That like a shadow organization that hunts them down while they're on the run.
They're both referred to as products.
And they're both called sponsors, the people who pay for the clone. Like they use the exact same phrasing.
Yeah.
Like they weren't even.
It's shameless. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. And actually, that's my favorite example is that they both movies show you green and red tubes that are how they get nutrients to the bodies or something. Like they didn't even change the colors.
They're both born in like bags.
Yeah, vacuum tube people bag. That's what I called it. They're not supposed to interact in either movie.
Yep, and then they also let's see, what's another one? I'm out. My brain's not working.
My last one was that they're all purposefully undereducated.
Yeah. They're reading things that are like a 5th grade level.
Yeah.
In like both movies. But yeah, it's bananas how many things there are. So the producers were able to come up with 90 examples. So there's clearly more. But well, the fact that they go and find their sponsor to try to expose it to the news, that's another big one.
How does Ewan McGregor goes and finds his sponsor, and it's this guy Tom Lincoln, who is Scottish, but Lincoln 6 Echo doesn't have a Scottish accent because he's been speaking American English his entire life, right?
Yep.
But then later in the movie, Lincoln 6 Echo is impersonating Tom Lincoln, and he knows like the term "cut the shit," but he says "shite" as if he was actually a Scottish person. Where would he learn that?
So I think maybe, there was some time, I'm sure that there was a matter of a couple hours where they were interacting, but also like the hand waving thing, like when it's convenient, he knows how to drive the motorcycle. He knows how to drive the boat. He knows how to drive the car. He doesn't necessarily know the laws of the road, but he knows how to do things. So we'll hand wave that away. I mean, so I want to, I made the joke in my summary that they kill indiscriminately and without remorse. Like immediately as soon as they start to escape, both of them are like taking giant chains and giant wrenches and just smacking people across the face. Like it's nothing. Like they don't care. They're not like, holy shit, we just killed people. What's on the run? They're like, immediately when they get out of the facility and they get, they find like a snake and they're like, oh man, that's mean. Like they're immediately cracking jokes. And then they go to a bar and I love this. Like they're looking for Steve Buscemi because there's a point where
I don't think they've ever encountered death and they're bludgeoning people in the heads.
Yeah. They don't even care. Well, then they Lincoln, played by Ewan McGregor, he constantly is like breaking the rules and he's going to Sector 5 to see Steve Buscemi, and Steve Buscemi is like a friend / mentor who's really from the real world. And they go to a bar because Steve Buscemi has like a matchbox, and he, Lincoln finds the matchbox and he recognizes the name of the bar and he's like, oh, let's go to this bar and try to find him. And they, it's a stupid scene, but there's a lot of, somebody asks for Scarlett Johansson's number. She's like, 2 Delta. They're like, where's Steve Buscemi? He's taking a shit in a can. Taking it where? Just really dumb kind of things. But, they immediately go to Steve Buscemi's house. Steve Buscemi fills them in, like, you're clones. And he has, like, this really good thing. Like, they're like, oh, we'll go find our sponsors and get on the news together. And we'll expose it and everyone's going to know what's going on. They're like, they're not going to care. They're going to care. They're not going to care. Like, he just has this little thing that I fucking love. But then they go to the train station and the bad guys show up because Sean Bean hires Digimon Hansu to hunt them as like, a Black Ops mercenary kind of group. And they show up in the train station and they immediately just like shoot nail guns and hit him in the face with pipe wrenches again and throw him over balconies. And then they immediately like get to Los Angeles and they're immediately joking again.
Yep.
And then they like get in a police chase where the quote unquote mercenaries people who are supposed to be trying to keep it quiet are shooting up the police, and like they hit them. The good guys are in the back of a police squad, and then the mercenary group plows them in like an armored truck, and the car cuts in half.
Do you think that's the first use of that shot, by the way?
I have no idea.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like that shot where the Mack truck hits the police car is one of these things where it's shooting from the passenger side and it looks through the driver's side window. And you see they're like having a conversation, and then all of a sudden you see a car coming towards them, and within seconds it like plows into the car. And that's been used in like, Whiplash, I think, is one of the big ones, but it's been used in so many movies. And I'm curious if there's any that date back.
No, I think it's I'm sure I've seen that in like a 90s movie.
Isn't it funny when you see a shot in a popular movie and then you see it in every summer blockbuster for like 10 years? It's like the Dark Knight one was one of those too. And Michael Bay ended up using the Dark Knight truck flip.
Yeah, the truck flips were a big thing for like 10 years.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher Nolan.
I mean, the Fast and the Furious movies did the truck flip, a couple of variations of the truck flip.
It's the action movie fan in me like enjoys that because I like seeing how things get upped. And I think that's kind of what happened with the Dark Knight truck flip, but that doesn't happen with this shot in this movie. Like it's always
no, not at all.
Anyway.
It's always the same thing. Yeah. But immediately, like they somehow run away while the mercenary group is fighting the cops, but then they get on this like flatbed truck and they're just dropping like train wheels on the freeway, killing pedestrians and civilians. And then they police legitimately, like, you and I have been very critical of the state of the police in this country on this podcast.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, the cops were doing their jobs. There's a very dangerous situation. These situations are what we actually need the cops for. Yeah. We don't need them dealing with homeless people or mental health care crisis. Right. We need them dealing when there's actual danger.
Yeah.
And these guys they immediately kill police officers, steal their jet bikes, fly through an office building.
The jet bikes are the mercenaries.
No, that was the police.
No, I think
it was the police.
No, they just slap police things on their vests.
No, it was actually police for this.
All right.
You've
seen this movie plenty of times.
Yeah. So, but even if it was the mercenary, like, just kill these people indiscriminately. But then they fly into a skyscraper and they hit a pedestrian. Which
some guy just working in an office building. That was one of my favorite parts. That was one of my favorite parts when the guy goes flying off the bike in the middle of the office building.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. That was a fuck up on set where somebody luckily didn't get hurt. That was not a stunt person. That was an extra that didn't get out of the way.
Woof.
So, yeah, that's not a good look. But
I'm glad that he's not injured, but that was one of my favorite parts. I thought that was a nice detail.
Oh, yeah, I laugh at it every time. But then they go into this ridiculous thing. They fall 70 stories on a marquee sign on the outside of a building. And it's so ridiculous that a person's like, oh, Jesus must love you. And then you see Scarlett Johansson. God, I know Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, this feels like a good time to go into my minor rant about this movie.
Yeah, go for it.
This movie is misogynistic as fuck.
It's a Michael Bay movie, dude.
It's so anti-woman, dude. It's just like right there on the surface. It's not even like trying to hide it.
Oh, not at all.
And I mean, I knew that like if someone said, hey, Michael Bay is kind of sexist, right? I'd be like, yeah, he's also like kind of racist, right? Whatever. Like, I get that. But watching this movie just made me realize it on a whole different level. Like, it's right there in front of us. It was real bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just the way everybody ogles Scarlett Johansson and then like her lingerie commercials and everybody talking about how they've jerked off to her and her magazines. And she doesn't know anything about sex or masturbation or anything.
Yeah.
And people are just
like, there's a part where he says, yeah, never give a woman your credit card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing that's a little weird about that is Ewan McGregor's character. He technically plays two characters because we see the host, Tom Lincoln, or the sponsor, and he's got a venereal disease that's like destroying his liver.
Right.
And he's explaining it. He's like, oh, yeah, my liver's going to go because I've got hepatitis and some other thing. And he's like, oh, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's from lots and lots of sex. I have so much sex. Sex is the best. And then he's like, what sex? He's like, you're a virgin? You're hanging out with Scarlett Johansson and you're a virgin? But then he's like swooning over. He's like, I've never had sex with a woman like Scarlett Johansson. Like, he turns on a dime where he's like talking about how much sex he gets and how many beautiful women he fucks. But then he's just like, I don't like this term. It's not a term I like, but I can't think of a better word, but he's like simping for Scarlett Johansson's character, and it's super weird.
Yeah, and then he like smells her, right?
Yeah, it's like
this is I think this kind of thing has fallen out of favor now, but the age difference between those two is kind of crazy too. Ewan McGregor was, I think, 34 in this movie, and Scarlett Johansson is 21.
Yeah, she was young, and that's like not even that big of an age gap for Hollywood, which is insane.
Right. But you know, I'm a little bit older than 34. I would not be spending time with a 21-year-old.
I'm 33, and I would not. You know, I would never date a 21-year-old if I were single. Like, just the life experience is so different.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a misogynistic as fuck movie.
Yeah, and just to get through some more just fucked up deaths, kind of thing that he doesn't care about. Like, we find out that Tom betrays Lincoln and Jordan. So, you know, they get in the car and they're being pursued by the bad guys, and they go into this like empty warehouse, and they, you know, Lincoln finally realizes like, oh shit, these bad guys are going to kill me unless I can convince him he's the clone. So he's like, he's the clone, kill him. And then he like slyly puts the bracelet on the sponsor, and then the bad guys go, oh shit, that's the guy, and they kill him. And he doesn't have like a moment and like, oh man, I almost died. He's just like, he makes this really smug looks, and he's like, close one. Like, just smug as shit. Like, he has no remorse at all. And then like they decide they need to break back into the facility and rescue everybody, and like they give Scarlett Johansson a gun, and she just shoots an orderly in the knee, like no problem. Like, she does not care about hurting people. Like, it's fucked up.
That scene where it's like, shoot him, no shoot him, no shoot him, I'm Tom Lincoln. He's holding a gun to his clone's head, but also saying don't kill him. Like,
like, why didn't he
or
just
what,
shoot?
You're gonna kill him?
Yeah.
And also, like, if I'm Digimon Hansu, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I would shoot them both in the leg and then take them back to my boss and let him figure it out. I'm not going to risk killing the wrong guy.
Right. It's just there's so many things.
I didn't appreciate. Say his name for me.
I say Jimon Hansu.
Jimon. All right, I'm going to say Jimon. I
think
that sounds better than Digimon. I don't want to make that joke.
Yeah,
more
I
than
feel
once.
you.
Jimon Hansu at the end has like a change of heart where he's like, you know, war is bad, actually. Killing people's bad. And then he's the guy that like saves the day. And I just like, I don't care. I didn't buy it at all. It didn't do anything.
Well, so like his turn, like it's shallow, but like his turn is like Scarlett Johansson wins because her sponsor got in like a horrific car accident, like 2 punctured lungs, a punctured liver, punctured heart.
Right.
Like, she's going to die. And Sean Bean's character was like, oh, she's going to die even with these organs. Like, she has a 0% chance of living, but she paid for the opportunity, so we're going to do it. And that's where he's kind of like, I don't like this. But I think this ties into, so he kind of helps them out. He helps the clones survive and escape. And then there's this like, you know, it's actually a pretty cool shot. Like, it's almost like ants coming out of an anthill because they're in the middle of the desert on this
No
like,
shot
plateau.
in this movie is a pretty cool shot. This is one of the ugliest movies I've ever seen.
I mean, it looks like most of Michael Bay's movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's interesting. You see like this really, you know, desert. You see all the people in the white, see like hundreds and hundreds of people in white costumes coming across on this like desert terrain. It's actually kind of, you know, interesting. But they're on everyone's wearing white, and you have Jimon Hansu in all black. And then like him and Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor share a look. And there's no bad will against them because these clones lack basic humanity. They don't care about killing. So they're not even mad at this guy for attempting to kill them a bunch of times because they clearly don't care and have no remorse.
Yeah, and now there's 1,000 of them that are going to go off into the world doing God knows what.
And just kill people because they don't realize killing is bad.
And looking exactly like the wealthiest, most influential people in the world.
Yeah, it's bananas.
Yeah, it is bananas. Why is Jimon Hansu always sweaty in this movie?
Yeah, Katrina made that comment too. It's like it's not even sweat. It's like it's straight up like turtle wax all over his face. Like he looks like he was rubbed in petroleum jelly.
That's crazy. Did you catch our girl Yvette Nicole Brown in this?
Yep. Yeah, she's the like the secretary at the hospital.
And did you see who else was in this?
Who?
Fake Dean.
Oh, he was like the clone that was like learning how to be a clone, right?
Yeah, he's like the first impaired one that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this movie has like a ton of like character actors that are in other Michael Bay films.
Mm-hmm.
Like a couple people in this play agents in like the Shadow Organization and Transformers movies, and there's a guy in this who's like a general.
Michael Bay is
in a
kind of
lot
like the Wes Anderson of shitty popcorn.
shitty action movies.
I said I appreciated the futuristic LA. I liked the design of that.
I do too.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. We talked about how many innocent people are dying. Oh, I like when
So
the two
many.
mercenaries are going up the elevator, like, and there's like a brief respite from all the chaos, and it's just kind of quiet. And he looks over at the other one. And he goes, "Tough day."
Yeah.
That was legitimately one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a lot of. I'm going to get on my soapbox for one more minute.
Do it.
A lot of sassy, fat black people in this movie.
Yeah.
Don't really
Quite a
appreciate
few.
that.
Yeah. It's a thing that Michael Bay does in a lot of his movies.
Yeah. Oh, why do the Lincolns have the exact same haircut?
I don't know, man, because it's easy.
Yeah, thank you. That answers my question. Nobody recognizes Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, and she's supposed to be like a famous TV actor / model.
And she was able to go to an MSN search phone booth and call herself.
Yep.
Can you imagine?
And talk to her son. Yeah, that's weird.
It'd be like if I went to a
what-
phone booth and called Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
It would be cool.
And
but
it's
I
a
can't
video
do it.
call. So a couple of things that I want to talk about, like the technology of the world. So one of the things that I thought was it doesn't make any sense, but I think it's a funny dynamic is they bring Lincoln in for questioning. Sean Bean's like, yeah, we noticed you've got some stress elevations. You're having nightmares. That's not normal. We're going to put some sensors in you. But they're like these little things that are like BBs from like pellet guns that they like pours, and they have little spidery,
like those
spindly
guys.
legs.
Yeah.
But they go in his eye, and they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, these are sensors." And he goes, "Oh my God, it hurts." No, it doesn't. Yeah, it really, really hurts. No, it doesn't. And he's like, "It really, really hurts." And then he's like, "No, actually, these are gonna monitor your systems, and then you're gonna pee them out, and that's really gonna hurt." That doesn't make any sense anatomically. They go in through the
that's
eyes,
in my notes.
and they go out through the urethra.
Yeah.
Like, do they bore through something and then like stitch
They're
it back
not
together?
They're
like
not that
nanobots?
small either. Like I
No,
can roll
they're
them
like-
in between my finger.
Yeah,
They would
like I
do
said,
some
they're
damage.
like BBs from a pellet gun.
Yeah.
And then
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the only other thing is, this was a couple years after Minority Report, and they wanted to you start seeing a lot of like interfaces where you're sliding things around. They don't do the Minority Report where it's up in the air and they're moving things around, but it's like on the table. And I was just thinking, I'm like, that is the least ergonomic way to work. Like
Yeah.
they don't have monitors
With a little
their
pyramid.
tables. Yeah, like their desks are monitors, and they have to look straight down. It would be terrible for ergonomics and your posture.
Yeah, and like he used like this little palm-sized pyramid thing that looks like something you get like a crystal store, and it would harness your chi or something, and he moves that around. It would just be like stabbing your hand. That doesn't
Yeah,
seem to make
or it's
sense.
like you went to Vegas and you went. Is it the Luxor? That's the pyramid.
Yeah.
It's like
got
he
a
just
little
went to their he went to
souvenir.
their gift shop and bought a souvenir, and it's just like on his desk. And he's like, "Oh, that's in the way."
Yeah. Did you notice? This is one of the character actors that you mentioned. Lincoln's like friend in there is like kind of a pudgy guy with like long hair, but he's also balding.
Yeah. He's from Star Trek.
Yeah,
One of the Star Trek series.
That's right. I thought it was funny that dude was like kind of fat.
Well, that's the
These
thing that's
people
weird.
are
Is,
like, I mean, I know there's genetics that can make you a little bit heavier or whatever, but like all the people in the underground facility are like bred and monitored every day to be in like perfect health because people have like $500,000 invested in their organs being in good shape.
$5 million.
Oh yeah, $5 million, right? Yeah, his car was 500,000. They have a lot of money invested in these organs being in perfect shape, and I feel like that dude should be like in the best shape that guy could possibly be in. I don't believe that was that.
Well, and that's the thing that like always falls through with like clones. So this one has the accelerated clones, like they are born adults,
Right.
And they, but what doesn't make sense is, yeah, sure, certainly there's, going to be genetics involved, and if they're aging them to the same level that they were when they got scanned, that's what they call it, scanned. Yeah, they might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, or they might have a little bit of a handicap. But there's a point where like there's a 10-minute scene where they're arguing about bacon, like.
Yeah.
Lincoln, who's in great shape, he's Ewan McGregor, and he's talked about being in perfect shape and a good fighter and a good worker and exercises rigorously, but he's not allowed to have bacon because he has a slight sodium level that's high. But how is anybody
Meanwhile,
fat?
Right, exactly. And on the flip side of that, if you see the Michael Clark Duncan scene, he's like rampaging through the hallways, and like he's fucking ripped at this point in his career.
Huge.
He's massive.
Yeah.
He looks exactly like the football player version of himself. But then,
Yeah.
like, I don't think that guy should be that ripped. He shouldn't look
Because he was
as
just
ripped as a
born. He's never
full-timer.
worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's
because
not
he was
hitting
only
the gym
he was
there.
only there for 3 weeks.
Right. So
Yeah.
this movie sucks.
This movie's not a good movie. Like it's not highbrow, but I think it's fun. Like there's some great one-liners throughout the movie. There's some good dialogue. There's some great concepts that they stole from Clonus. But like I still think the concept is a really cool concept. And I think this is executed better, but it is, executed by Michael Bay. Like imagine if Christopher Nolan made this movie.
Yeah. I think
it would be really fucking interesting.
I think it's worth a watch one time if you know what you're getting into with with Michael Bay and stuff. Scarlett and Ewan are like, whatever. It's not the best performances of their career. Although Scarlett Johansson's basically being the same as she always is. So.
She's always the same character.
Yeah. I think it's worth a watch. I think the sexism really makes it not a rewatch for me.
See, you're not wrong. And what's weird about this movie is I worked at the movie theater when this came out, and I had never heard of it. So like I worked at a theater that only had 8 screens, and basically the way it worked was the big movies, of course, were in the bigger screens, and then the medium movies were in the medium screens, and then as it was an old movie, or if it was a movie that an independent, like the rare time we got an independent film or like a Christian movie that we knew it was going to be in theater 1, which was a small screen. This movie, never even heard of it until it was in screen 1, and I went and just watched on my lunch one day when I was working at the movie theater. I'm like, what is this movie? And I came in and watched the motorcycle scene. I was like, what the hell? Holy shit, this is cool. So I brought my dad in to watch it because we had never seen it. Anything for it. Like I didn't see any trailers for it, any posters for it, and I worked at the movie theater for a whole year before this came out. Like my theater opened in 2004, and this came out in August of 2005. So it was weird that me being a movie guy never heard of this movie until it was like on its way out of theaters. Right. And but it's just I have a soft spot for this movie. It's a fun movie, and Katrina loves this movie too. Like this is legitimately like the one action movie. Like Katrina will go see action movies at the theater, but she never watches action movies at home.
That's funny. Well, let's wrap it up with a Sean Bean death in a film recap. Usually Sean Bean, this is where we have the theme music come in. Sean Bean. Sean Bean generally dies in movies by being impaled by a sharp object or falling off of something very high up. And in this movie,
he does both.
No, he gets hung in this movie. He doesn't fall.
But he gets the thing wrapped around him, and then he's thrown over a balcony, which is hundreds and hundreds. Yeah.
He only falls like
by
12
the grapple
feet.
hook things.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Sean Bean is known for being the person who gets killed a lot in movies. He actually pales in comparison to Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's died in more movies than Sean Bean.
He impales in comparison.
Zoom.
I think Steve Buscemi was my favorite part of this movie, and it was nice.
Steve Buscemi's fantastic.
It was nice seeing a little Ghost World sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Steve Buscemi. He's my favorite part of this movie too.
Yeah. I mean, he was hired for that role. They needed somebody with some gravitas in the middle of the movie for the movie to balance its two halves on, and I think he did perfect job.
And he's got a tough job where he's got to do like all the exposition in a way where he can explain it to idiots in the theaters as well as idiots.
This is one of my notes.
The stars. And he does it in such a way where it's entertaining. He does it in a way that makes sense. No, he did a great job.
Yeah,
perfect. But I guess we need to wrap it up. But like, it's hard. This doesn't fit our normal metric of being a true remake or reboot. But I absolutely think this idea was a great idea to come and be revisited.
Yeah, and I think to answer the core question of this episode, yeah, it was absolutely ripped off of Clonus, the parts horror Clonus parts. And, they deserved every penny that they got.
Yeah.
And good for them. Can you imagine making a movie and then 25 years later, you get paid another $10 million for it?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, it would have been single
for doing
it was seven. Yeah. It was seven-figure deal. But still, this movie, like the original movie was made for about $250,000 and made $3 million.
$999.99 million.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's still, they made a bunch of money off this movie that they made more money on the settlement than it made in its original run.
Yeah.
Likely.
Yeah. And they just keep on giving Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, it's weird that they didn't just like license the rights. Like I read somewhere, but there's no proof, but like I read somewhere that Clonus was screened for some people at DreamWorks. And then a few years later,
Well,
this was made.
I read that too, and that like somebody in town saw a movie. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah,
I think
fair.
that's something that makes the story seem sexy, but doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's wrap it up. Tell our listeners where they can find you all over the interwebs.
Yeah. If you're still using Instagram, it's like a ghost town over there. I'm at Dyslexic, DYS Alex IC. I'm more active on TikTok at Polishi, on Twitter at Polishi, on Stimulus by Sticker Mule, rad new social app. I'm on there at Polishi.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it later because we don't have time. And I'm making all sorts of film, TV, and music T-shirts and merchandise and stuff on Etsy at Burn the Scene Boutique. And if you use the code Remake Rewind, you'll get a sweet little deal.
And that's all going to be in the episode description. If you guys like what we do here, you can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. We are also on YouTube. I don't do enough to plug it. We need about 40 more subscribers so I can get the personalized name.
Yeah.
So go out there, just subscribe to it, and then I can get the name and make it easier for these little... That's the main reason I don't plug it, is I can't just say MDXpod, youtube.com/MDXpods.
Ironically, you have to plug it for people to do it.
Yeah, I know. But it's just a long plug. Yeah. And then if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods and get early access, bonus episodes, and whatnot.
And you can also follow us both on Letterboxd at Polishi
and MDXpods Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.